All right, viewers, Bart Gutierrez, member of European Parliament from the Netherlands, someone who identifies himself as a liberal, conservative Dutch politician, joins us from Strasbourg, France, where the session for the European Parliament is in session as of now. Welcome, Bart.
Hey, good to be here. Thank you very much.
Welcome to the viewers. Welcome for the viewers on behalf of viewers of Republic Network in India. And you have in the ongoing session asked for the European Parliament to invite Ahmed Massoud, the son of warlord legend Ahmad Shah Massoud of Afghanistan, to speak to the European community from the European Parliament, like his father did perhaps more than 2 decades ago. My concern is, are you kind of plowing a lonely furrow? Are you alone in raising this kind of demand in support of Ahmed Massoud, given the fact that we have seen many other nations in Europe actually wanting to do business with the Taliban?
Well, I don't think many want to do business with the Taliban. I think that many have some interest still left in Afghanistan, and they need the Taliban to secure their interest on the short term. In the long term, though, I think that we need to look for alternatives. There's not an inclusive government, right? There's the Northern Alliance, let's say the leaders from ethnic Uzbek, Tajiks and Turkmens, Hazara, they are not on board. So I think the resistance will always come from the Panjshir Valley. And Ahmed Massoud Jr. is now leading the fight that his father did. And I commend that. And Commander Massoud was received here in Strasbourg in Brussels 20 years ago, just before he was murdered by bin Laden's henchmen. And now it's time for us to recognize that resistance that is still going on in Afghanistan. We need to support that. And sure, we have some short-term interests in Afghanistan, also dealing with the Taliban in one way or another. But I don't think that recognition of the Taliban regime will be on the agenda, sir.
Well, we have very clearly heard from the Denmark, for example, that they are not going to recognize Taliban regime in any manner. But then we also have the Germans saying that they would want to open their embassy in Kabul very soon. And the manner in which the humanitarian aid started flowing through the Taliban regime, thus giving them some legitimacy, I think there seems to be a very strong element within governments across the European community that perhaps there is no option but to deal with Taliban.
Well, let me just say that here in European Parliament, we've discussed it, and there's no option that we will support any financial direct support to the government that is currently in the Taliban regime in Afghanistan. European aid is there, it's free to give, but we can only do it from an invite from the government. We need to have security. We need to be sure that it gets there. We need to be sure that our people who aid people in Panjshir Valley or Bamyan or other provinces are safe there. But so that's a relationship that you have to have with the Taliban regime, just for practical reasons. But I think the recognition is nowhere to be heard. And I've discussed it with dozens of colleagues here in Strasbourg. I don't think that is on the agenda right now. What is on the agenda is we must make sure that we see the people in dire need in the Panjshir Valley and make sure that they get medicines, they get food and whatever they need. And if it's not overtly, then we must look for ways to support them.
Can you elaborate a bit more on this? Giving podium speeches is one thing, but then what's your sense when you talk to the other members of the parliament from other nations in terms of support for Panjshir resistance with their respective governments? Like, are they willing to be very open about supporting the Panjshir resistance?
No, not yet, because we still have some interest in Afghanistan. But I think that I'm ahead of the music, like we say, but it needs to be done. This is the line that we will follow in the long term. I think I'm one of the first to call for it, but it doesn't mean that I am the only one. It means that everyone agrees with the analysis, but the timing is a different factor. But then I don't disturb that. I'm not reluctant in it. I just want to call out what it is. And I think you in Afghanistan, you know very well what Pakistan did in the past years, supporting the Afghan Taliban, which had a very malign influence in the country. And we see it right now, that the ISI and members of the army reforming the Taliban army. And I think that's also good to balance such activities from other nations like here in Europe. And in Strasbourg, we have a strong voice in it.
That's a very important point you are making, Bart. Are you there? Are you getting me?
Yes, I'm getting
About the role of
hello.
about the role of Pakistan. You know, there is this sense within the strategic community in India and even in the United States, for example, that Pakistan has been allowed to go off the hook. They have been allowed to go scot-free, and their accountability has not been fixed in terms of all the trouble that is emanating from Afghanistan for the rest of the world. And in the present context, whatever is happening there has a Pakistani context.
Well, Pakistanis are well positioned right now. Looking at from here in Europe, they have supported the Taliban by not creating a Pashtunistan. They made sure that the Indian influence in Afghanistan was minimal. Now they want a return on investment. I think they are. I think they're waiting for it. I think they are engaging with the Taliban. And now the game is on, the play is on with the regional powers looking at Afghanistan, and the West. And here in Europe, we are less looking at Afghanistan. And that's why I think it's very important to not leave Afghanistan alone, especially the resistance in the Panjshir Valley and in other parts, because that will always be where the resistance will come from. And I think that it's not just resistance. I think that Europeans will also call for, if you want a stable government in Afghanistan, you need to include some of the ethnic minorities. You need to include some of the northern people there. And you need to be sure that you decentralize your government and not make sure that you centralize everything by a Pashtun government in Kabul. That's not the way that Afghanistan is governed for a long, serious term of government. So the Taliban won't be there forever as well. There will be new options. Well, it's not just the Pakistanis. There are many malign influences. Everyone is saying it's a gray zone in itself, Afghanistan. And it's we need to make sure that we find a new... Well, I already mentioned the malign role that Pakistan played there. So we don't need to say that 3 times in a row. But what I do want to say is that there are many, many people who are very interested in creating fuzz and discord in Afghanistan, and that is very malign for many nations. And I dislike it and disapprove of it. I want to make sure that Europe plays a fair role. We want to make sure that we deliver on Afghanistan people, that we make sure if there's a famine, which is coming this winter, because the harvest was very poor. We want to make sure that there's money, there's food, and there's medicine.
Right. Thank you so much, Bart. I hope you are heard both on providing support to the Panjshir resistance and, of course, fixing the accountability where it is due, and that's Pakistan. Thank you so much, Bart.